get pulled over by the Vice Squad. And we're on the way home. And on the way home, right, we see this Porsche next to us, and it's Lionel Richie.
I remember hearing him play piano starting at 12 or 13 and thinking, I'm not going to be playing piano. Because he was just too good. It wasn't a jealousy. I think we've always been competitive about being successful. I think our father kind of instilled that in us because he was competitive about being successful.
Hi, welcome to another episode of 90who10. I am your host, Jessica Entner, and I'm sitting here with my co-host, Dan Eisenstein. And we want to remind you, we're getting some traction. So please subscribe. We've got lots of interesting interviews coming up, and we're having a blast doing this. We're like going down memory lane.
We are.
So much so that our next guest almost doesn't remember me, just kidding. But we were really, really close in high school. Dan was really close with him. I'm so excited to have him and just kind of reminisce. This is Brennan Thicke, son of Alan Thicke, brother of Robin Thicke, and son of Gloria Loring, who is an amazing singer-songwriter and sang every theme song that we grew up with for every 80s sitcom.
That's right. And we're going to get into that, too.
Let's start with your mom.
And my father. Both of them had all the hit songs from the 80s sitcoms.
That's crazy that your dad, he's known as an actor, but he wrote Different Strokes. And we were just talking about Different Strokes because Bobby Jacoby was here, and he had an arc on Different Strokes as the alcoholic kid, 13-year-old alcoholic. But your mom and dad wrote the theme songs to Different Strokes and to Facts of Life.
These are quintessential Gen X theme songs.
And everybody knows your dad from Growing Pains.
My dad wrote the original theme song for Jeopardy, too.
Oh, no way.
And then they changed it like 5 years later, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
God. That's
awesome.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's a good piece of trivia, too.
Yeah.
We should have a trivia show.
And your mom was on what soap opera?
Days of Our Lives.
Days of Our Lives. Yeah.
Many years through the 80s.
That's awesome.
I have to say, I met Brennan when I was in 11th grade. So I was driving.
Okay.
I had just turned 16 that October. So I was driving. And I remember, because my dad lived in the Valley, Brennan lived in the Valley. We became very close very fast. And there was like a period of time where we hung out every day.
Mm-hmm.
And you were always the most just sweet, unaffected person that came from such a big Hollywood family.
I'll take it.
I'm not going to lie. I always thought your brother was an asshole. That's He kind of was. And your dad was just like everyone's dad. I remember the first time I met him, Alan Thicke had the best head of hair in the business.
Yeah.
So coming from that family, you would never know that by knowing you. You were not that kid. You were very much like low pro. You were into music. You liked being around people making music. You were just an interesting, we used to have really deep conversations, watch Peter Sellers movies. But what was it like for you growing up in a family that was so enmeshed in Hollywood?
So I had three celebrity parents. Two celebrity parents and a brother that was on his way up. I remember hearing him play piano starting at 12 or 13 and thinking, I'm not going to be playing piano. Because he was just too good. And I think, so that cut me off really quick. Musicianhood, I'm still using two fingers. And, Rob was just, by the time he was 15, he was already singing and playing like you couldn't believe. And, he had an amazing talent. I remember that early on. And I was a DJ, I worked with you guys with Ballistics and all that kind of stuff. So my foray to music was just, I liked listening to it. I liked choosing it. And I still have a lot of fun doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I hobby as a DJ every now and then. But other than that, it's not easy to explain being inside of a celebrity family because you don't notice.
Mm-hmm.
They're just your parents.
Yep.
So, but for me, it was like everywhere we'd go or every time we'd go out or my, father took me everywhere, every celebrity event he could because he exposed us to it a lot. You'd see people clamoring to get his autographs and get to talk to him or touch him and, shake his hand. And so that was interesting. I think I probably stayed on the side. I was always more into the production side of things and the background and the business and understanding how things worked. And that was more of the way my brain worked and still does. I'm more of a production-based guy, and I like to be involved in creating and building. And not that artists don't do that, but that was more, I studied film school, so I went to learn direction and production and writing more than I did anything else. So that was more of what I was into. But it was having a mother and father both in the industry. It was fascinating. I mean, I was on sets all the time. I got to go visit both of them at their sets and see Days working, which was a totally different thing than Growing Pains and all the drama. And I was actually on Days of Our Lives and on the Christmas episodes where I met my current wife. And
no way.
We ended up, 20 years later hooking up and getting together and reconnecting. And
was your wife an actress?
No, she dabbled in stuff. She was on Saved by the Bell and that kind of stuff. So same thing, did little things like I did. I mean, I did, the voice acting with Dennis the Menace.
Let's talk about that. You did Dennis the Menace for a while, right?
Yeah, I did Dennis the Menace, and I did Mask was the other one, Scott Tracker on Mask, which now is a collectible. I see stuff. I had some guys come into one of my businesses once and ask me to sign a bunch of stuff for Dennis the Menace and Mask.
That's
and I was
awesome.
Laughing. And
That's great.
That's amazing.
And they went and started selling it on eBay.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Apparently, that's a very lucrative business.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah, I
knew?
was like, hey, you get $150 for my signature? Damn, I gotta get on eBay.
I know. Like, hey, I'll just sign this cocktail napkin for you.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
But that was funny to see that. Because that's my claim to fame, I suppose, was Dennis the Menace. And I had a lot of fun doing that. But anyway, back to your question. It's tough to say what's different. The difference is just watching people love your parents so much.
Sure.
The same people that, my father pretty much, I think they casted him because if you see him on Thick of the Night or Alan Thicke's show before Growing Pains, he's pretty much the same guy.
Yeah.
So I think he was cast because he was Jason Seaver.
Yeah.
Because he was that person.
America's dad.
Yeah.
And he was, and so for me, it's funny because people do say he's America's dad. And that's really a lot of what he was like. I mean, he was, hey, son, and sit down and give you the lecture, and my brother can imitate him like
perfectly.
A pro.
Yeah, he does.
Like I'm not much of an imitator, but so I mean that to me is the strange part is that, oh wow, yeah, you kind of did see everything my father was on screen was very similar. 70% of what he was in real life. And, even more so as he aged, he became even softer. And the last 20 years before he died, we had an amazing relationship that I was grateful for, because before that it was just work. It was busy, but he was also so family oriented. I mean, it was always like the family flying in from Canada, dinner at 6:00 with the family every day. He was in town after the show or in between takes. I mean, we lived right down the street from the studios, so he was always available when he was shooting and coming home to be with us. And so he was very involved, and but definitely more so in the 20 years prior to passing. So once the show was over, 90s throughout the 2000s, I was, every week or we'd either talk or text and be involved. So yeah, it's just like having any other father who was involved, strict, on your butt if you didn't do things right. He was amazing. I mean, I miss him dearly still. And but that's the gist of it.
Yeah. And a great sport, by the way. And the reason I say that is because so Dave Faustino, who's one of my closest friends, we've talked about him quite a bit on this show. And Dave had a show called Starving on Crackle, which was it was a parody of himself. It was basically himself,
I remember
but
that.
Like broke and down and out. And I don't know if you know Corin Nemec, who was on Parker Lewis. But Corin, the tagline was, I don't know if you remember Parker Lewis can't lose, but he did lose because he's living at Dave's house, And they had this episode they did, and the title of the episode was called Stealing Alan Thicke. Right? And they kidnap your dad, right?
I remember it.
And they're holding him for a ransom for $1 million to be paid by his millionaire pop star son, Robin. But every time they mention Robin, it's not Robin, it's millionaire pop star son, right? And so to do that, and probably for very little money, if any at all, and to be involved and let him be tied up and kidnapped. And there's a scene in a hockey rink, which your dad loved hockey. He had to have been a great, great, great sport.
He was a great, I mean, see, that was the thing. And now that you brought that up, I mean, my father knew how to work a room.
Yep.
And he had a lot of very good relationships with people. He was a master of being your friend.
Mm-hmm.
He was a master of socialization. And I think he taught us, my brother especially, because my brother, if you look at pictures of the two of them when they were the same ages, they look identical. I mean, and Rob picked up a lot of that from him. I mean, I know you said he was an ass, but he grew up. I know you're just teasing, but
15-year-old me.
But listen, I knew Robin. I actually met Robin before I met you.
Yeah,
I met Robin when he was about, I don't know, 12 or 13. And like you said, he was super talented, always singing for girls. Like we'd send Robin to like sing for the girls.
That's the thing. He had the confidence that was off-putting if you were like, what? But he was so
He'd
talented.
Sing Color Me Bad, which was like big in like 91, 92. And we'd like have him like perform for girls. That he was like, he was like our, like the bait, puppet. Like a puppet, but a little bit of the bait,
Oh my God, that's
he's been performing
Here's a 13-year-old boy.
But the thing is, so he's in our documentary about ballistics, and he actually does do the impression of your dad in the documentary. And it's great. It really is great. Yeah. It's coming. It's coming. Since we're talking about Robin, his career starts to take off. What was that like for you? Were you going out on tour? Were you
No, what was the the big thing was the big thing was, I mean, he had always been writing.
Yep.
But the big one was the first hit.
Was it Lost Without You?
Lost Without You.
Yeah.
That was when it started to affect me.
Yep.
Because that was a big hit.
Right.
So I think I started to notice like, oh, you're Brennan Thicke. Oh, and so there was more notice again towards my name, which is also interesting generationally. Like if you're on the phone talking to somebody, on a service rep, and you can tell that they're older. Oh, are you Alan Thicke's son?
Yeah, that's
and
great.
then if you're talking to somebody younger, they're like, oh, are you Robin Thicke's son?
That's hysterical. That must be a trip when they ask if you're Robin Thicke's son.
Son. Brother, son, brother, one of those things. Rob, he invites us to stuff all the time, and we do it 50% of the time.
But when like Lost Without You came out, were you already married at that time? I
think that was right after, what was that, like 2008?
Okay.
I'm trying to remember when that came out.
I don't remember exactly.
6, 7, 8. Yeah.
So you were probably already married at that time.
Yeah, we were just getting married in 2008. Yeah.
So you weren't running around and being wild.
No, nothing like that. But before that, Rob had worked on other stuff with other people and did writing. I forgot his whole history.
He was working with David Foster when he was young.
Huge history of writing and being involved in hits. I wrote a song with him on Jordan Knight's album.
Okay.
Oh my God.
That was my only claim to fame in the music part. So I wrote a little beat with a little piano riff, and it turned into a song that they ended up putting on Jordan's album in 1999.
Robin is like the typical overnight success that took years to happen.
Right.
It wasn't overnight. He's been plugging away, like I said, since he was 12, 13, 14, always playing.
He always knew he wanted to do what he does.
He always liked performing. That's his thing. He really loved being on stage, and he's a master at it. I mean, he is.
And he is. And the thing about it though, so I met Robin probably was like 12, 13. And then just maybe a year or two later, we started to do ballistics. And that's when you and I became friends. You were DJing. I think you DJ'd one of the first ballistics, right?
The first 3, and then you guys kicked me out because of DJ Speed.
I don't know. I mean, listen,
I had to bow down. I was not DJ Speed. He
hilarious.
That guy was one of the big DJs at the time. I never took it personally.
It was such a time. It really was. Yeah. We got the last of the good stuff.
We did.
We got the last of the good stuff.
It's funny when you see the documentary because of Speed. That's why Easy came. That's how Will got discovered. And
is that how Bobby Jacoby got signed?
No, that was way before. So did you know that Bobby Jacoby and Robert Gavin and Dave had a group called Outlaw Posse? Do you know about that?
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
I'm embarrassed for them a little bit. I'm also embarrassed for Ruthless Records.
Oh, that's so funny. But
why were they with Ruthless?
Well, first they were with Motown through Greg Mack, and then I think Ruthless for like a nanosecond.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah.
Ballistics, you DJ'd the first couple ones, and that's how I've always thought of you as like a DJ.
Yeah.
Right? And then after high school, what was going on with you?
After high school, well, I went to college at Marymount University up in Palos Verdes for 2 years, and then I went to Chapman and took film school there.
Yeah.
Actually was in classes and doing film school with Colin Hanks.
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Funny coincidence.
Yeah.
Not that I ever knew his father or anything,
Yeah.
but he was in, in the same film program I was. That was when Chapman was just starting to build their film programs, and I was doing editing and had a lot of fun there. And I went into I made some short films. We premiered it to some people, and then I went into business and started businesses, and the rest is,
And we're going to get into some of that. But let's take it back a little further. How old were you when your parents got divorced?
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
What?
It's like abrupt left turn.
Yeah, it was. I know.
There was no
We're getting too far ahead of ourselves.
Let's get deep into. But
let's
actually,
go further back. Go ahead.
I was thinking about it just really quickly. When you're talking about your family and when you're talking about your brother, and the reality is, you guys really came from a musical family. Your dad and your mom happened to be actors as well, but they were songwriters, they were singers,
and my dad was actually a producer. I mean, my dad started really as a producer up in Canada, and he did Fernwood Tonight, which was a big thing in the 70s, where he, I think some things and again, I might be hazy on this, but I think he was one of the first guys to put Richard Pryor on stage.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
My dad's history was a producer, really. And then he came to the States and did Thick of the Night. And that he was up against Johnny Carson, which was interesting because if he had had those numbers that he had against Johnny during Jay Leno, he would have beat Jay Leno.
Oh, wow.
But Johnny Carson was, the king of late night. So you can't, that's like
you
going
can't
up.
compete with the first. Well, then Ed Sullivan would.
But
Bob Hope had the Tonight Show before even. Didn't Bob Hope have?
He had a variety
I feel like he
show.
did. No, he had the Tonight Show before Johnny, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm dating myself.
But that was so that was his first. I think it was Thick of the Night, and then it was Growing Pains.
Such a great name.
Yeah,
because Thick of the Night was early 80s, I believe.
Yep.
And again, this is so long ago, I'm trying to recall. Yeah, so early 80s was Thick of the Night, and he was off the air for a few years. We lived in we had to move to a tiny house with my grandma.
After Thick of the Night?
Yeah, because, there was no more money. The divorce had happened.
Yep.
I want to touch on that because that is interesting. And I feel like there's a lot of people that don't, like when we were talking to James Haven and he was saying, well, I mean, yes, he grew up with all of these things, but he lived in an apartment.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of misconception that I grew up my dad had money one day and the next day he didn't. So, it was very the life of being an artist in any capacity, especially if you're an actor or a musician, it's not always guaranteed that you're going to be doing well. And your dad actually had bigger success later, right? When he was post 35, 40.
Yeah, he did well with Thick of the Night. He moved out here from Alan Thicke's show in Canada, which was a hit up in Canada.
When you see he was a producer, was he like a Dick Clark kind of thing?
He produced Fernwood Tonight and other things before that, but he was involved in, and I can only recollect it by looking at our old albums that I have at home, but he did other small parts and produced shows. He did the Olivia Newton-John Christmas specials. He did all these specials and was involved in directing and producing. And then Thick of the Night was his big breakout, or Alan Thicke's show was his big breakout thing in Canada. And production and everything out in Canada that he was doing. And then he got the offer for Thick of the Night. So he left Alan Thicke's show, did Thick of the Night. And then once that was canceled, I think it was 2 or 3 or 4 years that was canceled. And then he got Growing Pains.
And in between, was that when they were writing the songs?
That might have been when he was writing the songs. Yeah. It was all together somewhere in the 80s. And they were.
You're born in what year? 75?
I was born 74, yeah.
74. So, and you were saying kind of during those in-between years, between Thick of the Night, Growing Pains, maybe money was a little tighter. You said you mentioned you moved in with your grandmother. Is that?
Well, no, we just he had bought a small house out in the west side of Sherman Oaks, and it was just right there. Now things probably worth $3 million.
Yeah.
But back then it was we lived in a big house in Bel Air for all these years.
Yeah,
and they got divorced and huge downsize, moved into a small 2-bedroom, if it was 2 bedrooms.
So when your parents were married and you guys were born, you lived in Bel Air, and then downsized Sherman Oaks.
Downsized Sherman Oaks. And then Thick of the Night happened. And he bought this huge house in I'm sorry, yeah, this is like all these memories.
Met you guys, your dad was living in Toluca Lake.
Yep.
Toluca Lake. I think that's when he bought the house in Toluca Lake. I'm trying to remember.
But wasn't that post Growing Pains, that house?
Jeez, see, you're bringing back all these memories, man.
Why do we know this? This is kind of
Toluca Lake was during Growing Pains.
Yeah, that was during Growing Pains.
So you're right. So my timeline's off. So we lived in Bel Air during Thick of the Night.
Yeah.
My parents got divorced. Then we moved to the small house in Sherman Oaks with my grandma living with us.
Yeah. Your mom lived like Sherman Oaks Valley Vista, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember going there at one time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was a beautiful house up in the hills that she had for a while, and she's kept that until the mid 90s.
Wow.
We used to throw a lot of big parties up there when they would go out of town.
Did you? Yeah, I think maybe that's why I was there one time. I know I went there one time.
Oh, it was more than one party. You probably were.
Yeah,
Zucchini was up there.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my gosh.
I remember we thought the roof was going to collapse because he would come with his big clodhopper boots and dance all night.
Yeah.
But I remember I was like, I know how to ride a dirt bike. I rode it at my friend Brennan's house in Carpinteria because back then I was like, I know how to do this. And I remember you taught me, but 20 years fucking later and I get on a dirt bike, it was not the same outcome and I really hurt myself. Like that was the thing. All of you guys, and again, I'm a woman and we've talked about this. Like I really did. I felt safe with you. I felt safe around you. And I have some great memories where it was just like, and it sounds really goofy when I say this, but like I felt like one of the boys.
Yeah.
Like I didn't feel objectified in a lot of ways that maybe I do now. But it was a different.
Just because you talk about objectifying, I'm going to tell you the story about the first night I met Robin. Okay. So
I feel terrible. I called him out. He's not an asshole.
No.
He was just a young 15-year-old.
We were all assholes.
But again,
we really were. I
again,
was a fucking asshole.
So I'm 16 years old. Okay. And I had just recently become friends. You know, I did a movie with Robert Gavin called Home the Volume a year earlier. And then through Robert, I met Dave and I met Bo, whose mom worked on Married with Children. And it's the first night, the first episode back from Married with Children. We hung out all that summer and the show has come off hiatus. It's the fall. And this is the first episode they're recording. So we all go down to the set and hang out. And somehow at the end of the night, it ends up being at my house. Robin, Brian Green, Deezer D, my friend Quincy Rose, who's Quincy's dad was a writer for The Tonight Show and wrote Bananas, and his uncle's Woody Allen, and Bo Borden, whose mom worked on Married with Children. So we all pile into and Deezer D was on ER, and he was in that movie with Vanilla Ice, and he's an actor, and not with us anymore. So rest in peace, Deezer D. But anyway, we all pile into my mom's Wagoneer Jeep. The red Wagoneer with the wood paneling, and this is pre Hugh Grant, and we're 15, 16. The hormones are raging. We decide we're gonna cruise Sunset and check out the ladies of the night, right? Okay, and Robin is in the back, the way back, like in the like the trunk, okay,
like the jump seat in the back.
Yeah. I don't even think it's illegal to ride
totally
there today,
Yeah.
And we have no like experience or skill or anything, right? And Deezer D is a little bit older than us, and he probably had a little bit more experience than us, and he's gonna do the talking. And we're just, nothing's going down. We're just fucking around, And we're trying to get
fuck around and find out.
Right. Well, this is what happened. And we're trying to like show us your boobs kind of a thing, right.
Yeah.
And
it was the 90s. It was the 90s.
Yeah. And so we're on Sunset and we're talking to these ladies of the night and we're trying to we're not going to do anything, but we're trying to you show us your boobs kind of thing. And we get pulled over by the Vice Squad, right? Okay. Oh yeah. And I'm scared shitless.
This, again, 90s in LA.
I don't know how much experience the rest of these guys had, but I know that if this escalates and I get arrested, I'm in for a good ass kicking. You know what I'm saying? So, and somehow we talk our way out of it. I show my license. It says Beverly Hills. And I'm like, please, we're just stupid kids.
My dad's a lawyer.
No. I might, we're just stupid kids. Let us go, please. And they're like, go home right now. Okay. And we're on the way home. And on the way home, right, we see this Porsche next to us, and it's Lionel Richie. Okay, no, I'm not shitting you. It's Lionel Richie, and we literally pull him over. He was a client of my dad's in the '80s. We pull him over, And we sit and we talk with Lionel for like 10 minutes. And then we go home. And that was my first night ever hanging out with Robin.
That's fucking
when he was like
weird.
12. And I took him home he slept at my house and I took him home to Toluca Lake the next morning. So
He
that
was
was the
12?
He was like 13. I don't know.
Right.
So, and I was 16, just about to be 17.
So he was
and I'm born
15.
in 73.
Yeah. So he's the same.
Yeah.
Give or take a
Yeah. We have lots of stories of taking the cars out.
Yeah. So that was my first night hanging out with him.
Like, are you close with your brother? Like, how was that as you're watching him kind of go into, because you liked behind the scenes. Was there any kind of weird, I don't want to say jealousy, but like, oh, I'd like to do that. Or was it more like, this is his thing?
No, I think that growing up watching my father, it wasn't a jealousy. I think we've always been competitive about being successful. I think our father kind of instilled that in us because he was competitive about being successful.
Right.
So I wouldn't call it jealousy. I think we've always been, and now we're both, we've done great over the years and there's none of that left. But I think it was always just what are you doing? Oh, what are you doing? When we were younger, and maybe there was a little bit of that, but I never felt jealous about him. Just the same way I'm not jealous about watching a famous actor or singer. I'm more like, oh, wow, they're really great. I was trying to write back then in the 90s and because I liked writing and DJing. And so, so I played this thing for him and he was like, oh, that's great. I'm working on Jordan's album. Let's put that on the album. And that was my only musical thing I've done. Jealousy isn't the right word. Competitive. We've been competitive, but we're that way with everyone because that's our family. Yeah. My grandfather was a competitive guy. My dad was competitive. So that's more of it. Maybe if I was trying to be a singer or an actor, maybe that would, I'd feel more competition, but it's kind of like that was his lane and my lane was business.
Brennan, I do have a really good brain, maybe for the 20 years that I wasn't, some of the brain cells regenerated. Now I can't remember why we're here, but I remember a lot of memories with you. A lot of them were smoking weed, but I remember listening.
You were part of that whole crew.
I mean, I was strangely accepted as a man back then. I was gender fluid, motherfuckers.
I love it.
Sorry.
I love it.
Sorry. I'm really hyper right now.
I like it.
Like I got my third wind. I'm just going to vamp for a second.
I love it.
There's two things that I just remember a lot about you that I loved. And I want to get back into your businesses. But one was I have like memories where I literally think of you. One is the dirt biking one. But you were the first person that I really listened to Jimi Hendrix with.
Oh, that's a good memory. I like that
and
memory.
I used to drive around. And of course, if you grew up in LA and you happen to smoke weed, especially in the 90s, you knew all the spots.
Yeah.
Like we used to, I'll meet you at the spot. And every friend group had a spot. We had Batman. We had Lower Summit. I mean, I knew all of them.
Okay.
I knew how to get there. I may or may not have almost driven a car into a ditch once. I mean, all the things.
We had the spots until we had a place to smoke weed on our own.
No, I still like the spot. Up Doheny, right?
Sure,
Doheny. But I remember sitting up Doheny because I lived on Doheny and Sunset. And I remember going up in Doheny and listening like front to back. And that was really the experience for me. I think it's why I love music so much too, is I always had it like when you have a buddy to listen to music with and you go on a little stony journey. I mean, it's such a fond memory and I can't watch the party, Peter Sellers, without thinking of you. I think we started and stopped that movie. I think I've seen that movie 40 times because of you, but we started and stopped and would pass out halfway through it because it's a slower pace at the beginning. I think it took us at least me, it took me 5 times to see the movie all the way through.
Yeah.
But I just have all these fond memories.
Here's a great getting caught with weed story. So my friend Steve Bodoff, maybe I don't name him by name, but my friend Steve. Yeah. My friend Steve and John Weinbach's brother, Mark Weinbach.
Yeah, I know the story.
My parents had a house in Mammoth for about 30 years. And so this is in the summertime. And we go up to Mammoth and we're hanging at my house and doing some mountain biking and a lot of weed smoking, And we're in my 3 Series BMW, which was pimped out like a gangster. It had it was slammed to the ground and it had the giant chrome wheels and the windows were all blacked out, right?
That was the thing to do back then.
Yeah. And we smoked this giant joint before we leave the house and hit the road, I'm just blasted out of my mind. And Mark
I'm
Weinbach.
laughing. If anybody's listening, we have all grown up and out of this.
Yes. But
and you can't do this shit now.
No, you can't.
You can't. We got the last of the fucked up
Jessica's
things.
being a mom
I'm
right
being
now.
a mom.
She's being a mom.
She's
We leave my house in Mammoth, and we
smoked a giant
joint, and we're on the road. And at the time, so we get right away. I'm going down 395. We're maybe like 15 minutes out of Mammoth, and I see the highway patrol going the other way, and boom, he flips a U-turn, and I just know I'm getting pulled over.
He's
right?
like, you fucking motherfucking
and
LA
he pulls us
motherfucker.
over, right? Pulls us over, and again, Mark Weinbach's in the front, and Steve's in the back, and he walks up to the car, and the first thing he says, the first thing out of his mouth is, "I know there's weed in this car."
Oh
right?
my God.
Okay. And he's basically like, "Look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. You can either tell me what you got, or we're getting the drug dogs and everybody's going to jail." Right? Okay. And I'm 18, 19, I'm 19 years old. Okay. And my mom is
Your
still
whole
around.
life
And
flat
like,
before your
I'm
eyes.
going to jail. My mom's going to fucking kill me. And so that's pretty, a lot
Not
of my
even kill
stories,
you, be
a lot
so
of my
disappointed.
stories are with the, I'm going to jail. My mom's going to kill me. Okay. A lot of my stories. So I'm 19 and he's like, and look, we're going to do this the easy way or the hard way. In the meantime, Mono County Sheriff pulls up. So now I've got a highway patrolman and a sheriff. Okay. And I look back at Steve kind of for like the approval kind of thing. And he's like, gives me the approval. And I look at the guy, and I had a quarter of an ounce in the car, right? I'm like, yes, we have weed in the car. He's like, well, how much? And so I'm trying to say 7 grams, but I'm really nervous. And it comes out 77 grams. And he's like, 77 grams? I'm like, no, 7 grams, right? Okay. Well, right then, Mark Weinbach, and I'm going to put him on blast, and we can talk about this if John ever comes on the show, okay? So
we used to call that a quarter back in the day.
Right, exactly. Right. So Mark goes, Mark's basically like, I don't know these guys, I'm just getting a ride home. That's like basically what he said. And the cop is like, well, the driver's responsible. And Steve, to his credit, and why he's one of my best friends to this day, says, I'm with him. Whatever happens to him happens to me. Okay. And he's not wearing a seatbelt, by the way. That comes into play later in the story.
Oh, God.
So they pull us all out of the car. Okay. And they separate us because now Mark is not with us. So they set Mark down over here.
They're like, we can break this one.
And they separate me and Steve together. Right. Okay. And they start going through all of our shit. Okay. And they're like, do you have any other drugs? Do you have, and no, we didn't. We had no other drugs. That's all we have. We had the bong, you know. And at the time I was working as a script reader where I would read scripts and then write coverage on them. I had like a stack of scripts in my car. And the guy's like, well, why do you have all these movie scripts? And I'm like, well, I'm a script reader. And first he says, do you know Rick Rossovich? Which I don't know if you know who Rick Rossovich is. He's an actor. He was in Roxanne.
The firefighter.
He was also in Top Gun.
Yes,
and
I know.
Steve, whose dad was a big producer, and I don't know if this is a lie to this day. Steve's dad owned Filmways, and they owned Beverly Hillbillies, and he's like, oh yeah, my dad made a movie with him, right? Okay, which I don't know to this day if that was the truth or not. Anyway, as this line of questioning is going on, they're also going through Mark Weinbach's wallet, and what do they find in Mark Weinbach's wallet? 2 roaches. Now the heat is on. Okay.
Oh no.
And they're like, we thought you didn't know them. We thought you didn't do this. We thought you weren't with them. Like, and he's like about to piss his pants. He's like freaking out. Okay.
They don't like people from LA.
And they don't like it when you don't own it. They don't like it when you don't own it. When you don't own it. Right.
Yeah. You're in their town.
And by the way, they see that Mark's about to have a conniption fit. And so they said to Steve, you know, he knows Rick Rossovich. And they're like, do you know anybody famous? That's what the question to me was. I'm like, fuck it. If I'm going to use it, I'm going to use it now. Right. So I'm like, do you know who Bud Bundy is? Dave Faustino from Married with Children. That's my best friend. And the guy was like, look, can you get me an autographed picture of Bud Bundy? And I'm like, yeah, of course, no problem. And I did it because I felt like, and that was for the sheriff. That was for the sheriff, and for the highway patrolman, which I remember his name to this day, Dr. Qualls. Okay, can I write a letter of like, we got pulled over? Don't say what happened, but I guess this guy must have gotten a lot of complaints because they just told his boss saying like it was a good experience getting pulled over by this guy, right?
Right.
And now they've literally scared Mark to the point where he's about to shit his pants. And so they're like, you've taken enough abuse. We're going to let you go. Okay. And they let us all 3 go. And literally the whole ride home, I'm saying we're so lucky. We're so lucky. We're so lucky. And Steve's like, how are we lucky? They just took all of our weed. And Mark Weinbach, right? Which we're like, Steve is like riding him really hard, being like, drop this guy off at the next town. He doesn't know us. He's just getting a ride, right? Somehow it goes to, my grandparents are Holocaust survivors. I'm not good with interrogations and pressure and
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really, really fucking hilarious. But I was also just like, before you even said the like bum bum bum.
Yeah.
I just want to just point out the glaring white privilege that you guys had in that moment.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
Because let's be real.
Yeah,
I've gotten out of a ticket or two and don't think I haven't used my like, I have to go to the bathroom or like some girly like, I just got my period.
You must have gotten out a ticket or two in your day, right? Right? They see the last name and they lay you out of a ticket or no? Never?
No. I just, I don't think that one time I was pulled over by Vice with that kid I was with.
Because of Vice.
They just didn't even.
Just because you were looking nice.
They didn't even
boys.
get they were like, what are you guys doing in this neighborhood?
Exactly,
you know?
Yeah.
So what else have you gotten into? Like kids, married? Give me all the good stuff.
I've been
catch up with me after 30 years. Let's do this.
Yeah, I've been with my wife. We've been together just 20 years, and we've been married for. I think we're going on our 16th or 17th anniversary. Who counts after that long?
I'm in the same. I know. I'm like, fuck, 20 years went by real fast.
Yeah, it just went by. So yeah, we have a huge 15-year-old who's 6'3", which is like my grandfather. We have a lot of height on that side of my father's family, which are the Jeffries. Anyway, long story. And then we have a wonderful little daughter. And she's now about to turn 9, and she's amazing and quite a little gift in the family. And my son loves her, and they get along great. And so, because he's 15, so there's a little age gap there. So they play and they fight and they do all the stuff that siblings do.
But he's her protector.
Yeah, they're good kids. They're really good kids. We're proud of both of them. Yeah, that's about it. What about you?
Oh God!
Wait! We're not letting you off that easy. I'm not letting you off that.
Okay, keep going.
Because I happen to know some things that Brennan is up to. Okay?
Oh yeah, sure.
So first of all, I've known you since you were DJing when you were 15, 16, 17 years old, and now you're doing that again. And lately, you've which I don't know, maybe with the frustration of the moment, he was part of the he's been DJing Burning Man the last couple of years.
What?
Yeah.
He's still so low pro.
Yeah, no, he's been DJing at Burning Man the last couple of years.
This is great.
Managing a stage there. And this year they had some pretty torrential downpours.
Were you there?
He did tell me never again, but I don't know if that maybe may subside over the next,
Oh no, never again with the mud and the rain.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you can control that.
No, that was a lot of fun. No, so during COVID, I got really bored like we all did, sitting home for 8 months. And I was already I sold everything at the end of 2019. So I was always kind of like in semi-retirement, but I knew I wasn't going to retire because I'm too young. So I was like, okay, I called up some old buddies of mine who I used to DJ with back in the 90s and said, hey, you want to come over and mess around and let's have some fun? And I bought some equipment and, I got back into it and had a blast doing it. And then early 2021, I just was like, oh, I'm going to go and see if I can go to Burning Man. I got on Facebook. I started writing people and saying, hey, this and that. I'd love to come. And if you need anybody at your camp to come DJ, met up with a great camp out there. Did
you basically just attach yourself to a Burning Man community?
Yeah.
He did. And I watched it happen.
Awesome.
I watched it happen because I was one of the people he reached out to on Facebook because I have some friends of mine that are very involved with Burning Man that I put him in touch with, that he got some like kind of information because he didn't really know anything about Burning Man.
No, I mean I'd always heard of it
more than like the average Joe on the street.
But I kind of started getting into house music and EDM over the last 10 years a lot more than before. And I always have loved hip hop and R&B and rap, so that's been my mainstay. But I really got into the 2010s kind of EDM scene and loving that music and loving the energy that it creates. And so I reached out just to random Burning Man groups all on Facebook and all over the place. And finally I heard back from a few and talked to this one group that's up from San Francisco, and they needed a stage guy who could DJ, and that's it ended up working. And so I went out there and had a blast. I mean, there were some days I was just DJing for 4, 5, 6 hours at a time.
That's
and
awesome.
just kept doing it and absolutely loved it. I mean, great time, great people, very interesting community of people that I absolutely love. So,
And you've been doing that for a few years.
yeah, and I hated the mud, so I stayed in my RV the whole time.
But you can't control.
But that's, all in all, it wasn't as bad as the news story said it was, because the news was like drama. Everybody's gonna die.
Well, it
and
looked
run
like
out of food.
Listen,
And they're walking in poop. No,
listen, I was texting with him. I was
like that.
texting with him when it was happening. He's like, "Well, I'm holed up in my RV. I got plenty of food. I got AC. I'm good." And then it was like, this fucking sucks.
Well, yeah, no, and the reason it sucked, but I'm just for all the fellow burners out there, the reason it sucked for me is because I was afraid, to be quite honest, to go and get stuck in the mud, because I am also type 1 diabetic. I didn't want to get injured. I didn't want to get stuck somewhere and become a medical statistic. So I was like, okay, because I did go out a few times and I went out on the stage and DJ'd in the pouring rain, which was a blast. But I tried to get back one night and go back to my RV, which was only 100 feet away. And I got stuck. Like my feet got fully stuck in the mud. I fell down. My knees were stuck in the mud. I had to pull myself up. It was glue. I had to pull myself over to the side onto one of the RVs and lift myself up on one of the RVs. And then step by step through that mud. And it was literally like you'd step into it and you'd sink 6 or 7 inches.
This is how the dinosaurs died, guys.
So
I'm going to die like the dinosaurs out here.
So Burning Man, going back or not going back?
No, I would go back.
Okay.
He's like, as long as it says it's clear and sunny in the forecast, I will deal with 108 temperatures, but rain, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But it is. It turns to fucking glue.
It's an experience of a lifetime. I'm glad I did it. I don't know if I'll be back this year because of other business stuff, but I would definitely go back. It's a wonderful, everybody is so cool out there and the vibe is so great and people are so friendly. I mean, it really is. I know everybody thinks it's like hippie town and this and that, which it is, but it's just a great community of people who are just warm and happy and welcoming, and everybody, even through all that shit, it's been a great little resurgence. After 15 years of business, I got to take 4 years off and play, like you said, a lot of playing the last 4 years, especially with the family and the kids, which has been a blessing. Great. You and I have been talking about working together on some stuff, but we're looking into the bar restaurant industry and potentially part night. I like the combo of bar, restaurant, nightclub, supper club type stuff, and we're looking at a few. I've been in escrow to acquire a place, and we'll see if it all works out. But that's the to be continued part of the conversation.
Well, listen, and it will happen. Ben and I've been talking about this for probably 2 years now. And he's been very diligent. He's a very diligent businessman. And it will happen for him. And when it does, you're going to have to come back and we can talk about it and promote it and get people to come down.
We can host our podcast live from
that'd be awesome.
Brennan's place. This is such a delight for me because you were a surprise. And I do have so many great memories with you. I really do. It was so nice to see you, talk to you, catch up. And we both thank you so much for doing this.
Yep.
And so we're going to wrap up this episode of 90who10. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Brennan Thicke, for being here.
Absolutely,
you are obviously well loved by both of us.
And what should they do if they like this show?
They should hit the fucking subscribe button is what they should do.
Right.
Thank you for all of you that are following along and your support. It means a lot to all of us. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Congratulations on the new venture yourself.
Thanks.